MegaPodTastic.
Good morning, Mega Podlings. Krazy Joe here, and I want to talk about the season finale of Star Trek Discovery. Now, I should warn you right now, we are going to talk spoilers, so if you have not seen the season finale of Star Trek Discovery, you might not want to watch this video because we're getting into spoilers. Okay, here's the deal. I love Star Trek Discovery. It is my favorite show on TV. It is the only show I get excited and look forward to week after week after week. There have been now 29 episodes of Star Trek Discovery. Of those 29 episodes, I have enjoyed 28. It's not my favorite Star Trek series. That is still Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I love Deep Space Nine. But Discovery is probably my fourth favorite after Next Generation, and it is gaining on Next Generation for the number 3 spot. As for why it's still so low, it's a numbers game. There are 178 episodes of Next Generation. There's 29 episodes of Discovery. Therefore, pure numbers, there are more good episodes of Next Generation than there are Discovery. It's a simple numbers game. But, and I've said this before, I believe Star Trek Discovery is the most consistent Star Trek series in terms of the quality of the writing that we've ever had. Because as good as the original series was, as good as Deep Space Nine was, as good as the Next Generation were, every now and then you would get a clunker of an episode. With DS9, you got something like Prophet and Lace, the episode where Quark got a sex change operation. Awful. You get an episode of Next Generation like Code of Honor, the racist episode, or Rascals, where Picard became a child. There were not good episodes of Next Generation. The writing was inconsistent. You would have a great episode followed by a terrible episode, but there were more good than bad. Discovery, however, has just knocked it out of the park week after week after week after week since the first episode. I think part of this is because they're only doing about 15 to 14 episodes a season, whereas Next Generation did about 26 episodes a season. When you have to fill that many episodes, there's going to be a lot more filler, whereas a more streamlined season allows you to really avoid the filler and just tell the great stories. So Discovery is the most consistent, but it's still not my favorite. This was the first episode of Discovery I did not like. The finale, I didn't like it. I think this finale could have been done in 1 hour. They spread it out into 2 hours. Now let me give you a few of my problems with it. My number one problem was Michael Burnham finds out that she was the Red Angel. She sent the 7 signals, and she had to go back and send them all to put these events into place that were going to give them the tools they need to win the battle against Control. Okay, so then Michael makes all the jumps and sends the 7 signals, and we had to rehash them, each of those moments where we saw the 7 signals. I felt like this was rehash. We know those moments. We don't need to see them again. It felt like time waster to me. It really did. It felt like I was getting bored because I'm like, well, we saw this already. I get the point. You could just have her make the jumps without showing us each of the jumps again because we saw them already in the season. That's a minor nitpick. Where I start to really have problems is the conclusion of the episode. In the conclusion of the episode, we find out that Discovery has now gone into the future. They've gone 930 years into the future. That's pretty cool, and I look forward to seeing where that takes us in Season 3. The problem is, everything from the first 2 seasons gets classified, including the existence of Michael Burnham. Spock decides we should never talk about Michael Burnham or the crew of Discovery again. They should be classified. This is just stupid. It's there because there is a certain segment of the fan base who has been saying for 2 seasons, how come Spock never mentioned his sister? We never heard of Michael Burnham. How come Spock wouldn't have told Kirk, I have a sister? This plot twist seems to have been put there just to appease that portion of the fan base. But I don't believe that portion of the fan base can be appeased. I don't think they're going to be happy with this solution because they don't like the show. That's all there is. They don't like the show. This isn't going to make them suddenly go back and like the show now. And it's stupid because it didn't need to be explained. We don't need an explanation as to why Spock never mentioned Michael Burnham before. If there's one thing we know about Spock is he never discusses his family unless it's pertinent. In Journey to Babel, Sarek and Amanda come on board the Enterprise. Spock is there, Kirk is there, they greet Sarek and Amanda, then Kirk says, Do you want to go down and visit your parents? And he says, that is unnecessary. The ambassador is my father. Kirk had no idea because Spock had never mentioned it before. And the only reason he mentioned it now was because it was relevant because he was there. He probably would have never brought it up if his father didn't come aboard the ship. Then we get to Star Trek V, where we meet Spock's brother Sybok, who we never heard about before. Again, we didn't know Spock had a brother. Spock never mentioned Sybok before until Sybok was right there. So the fact that Spock had a human adopted sister that he never mentioned, that's just Spock being Spock. That's totally consistent with the character. It's totally consistent with canon. We didn't need an explanation that this character was suddenly going to become classified and, oh, that's why he never mentioned it. This is totally unnecessary to make a certain portion of the fans happy who I don't think are going to be happy. And in fact, online, I'm still seeing them complain about the episode, so it proves it didn't work. They're still not happy. I didn't like it. The other thing is we get another explanation like that about the spore drive and Discovery, and this is all classified. We're never going to discuss Discovery. No one should ever discuss this. Look, we already knew that the spore drive was failed technology because of the damage it was doing to other races, as we saw with Tilly's friend, May Ahern, the alien from the mycelial network. We know that the spore drive was harming these creatures. We know that. That was enough for the spore drive to be discontinued. Say, hey, we can't use this. This is dangerous technology. It's doing harm to other races. This technology was an experiment. It didn't work. Done. It doesn't need to be something that is, and we will never discuss it again. It is under penalty of treason. It's overkill. It's overkill. So yeah, I didn't really like this. Oh, and one last thing I didn't like about the episode. And by the way, my wife, Christine, she didn't have a problem with this. She actually kind of defended this. And I see her point, but I don't fully agree. I get where she's coming from, but I still don't see it. The show is called Star Trek Discovery. Our main characters are the crew of the Discovery, not the crew of the Enterprise. Now, Pike and Spock have been very important characters this season, but at the end of the episode, Pike and Spock went back to the Enterprise. Discovery gets flung off into the future. And we end the episode with Pike and Spock on the Enterprise looking for the seventh signal from Michael Burnham. They get the signal. They go, there's the signal. Pike says, hit it. We see the Enterprise fly off into action. We ended Discovery's season with the crew of the Enterprise. Now, this had shades of These Are the Voyages to me. These Are the Voyages was the much maligned final episode of Enterprise, where we don't really get to say goodbye to the Enterprise crew so much as we get to say goodbye to Riker and Deanna Troi, because the final episode of Enterprise was done as a holodeck program that Riker was running, where he put himself into the Enterprise crew. The final episode of Enterprise was essentially an episode of Next Generation. Very disrespectful to the Enterprise crew that they didn't get their own final episode. Their final episode was turned over to another series. That's what this felt like. Now, it's not as egregious because, A, it wasn't a series finale, it was a season finale, so it's not as bad. And number two, Pike and Spock were an important part of this season of Discovery, so they were characters on Discovery this season, so it's not as out of left field. But it did still feel like when the show's called Star Trek Discovery, we should have ended the season with Discovery. We should have gone to the future. You could have done the Pike ending, but then we should have had a postscript where we went to the future. We saw Michael Burnham and the crew of the Discovery arrive in their new future time and end on them, end on the ship that we've been following for 2 years. That's name is in the title. I didn't feel we should have ended the season on Enterprise. So there you go. I am excited to see what happens in the future. Now, season 3 of Discovery is going to take place 930 years later. That's the farthest we've ever gone in Star Trek history. What does Starfleet look like in the 33rd century? Is there a Starfleet in the 33rd century? We don't know. There wasn't in Calypso. Calypso was one of the short treks that took place 1,000 years in the future. But this is 930 years in the future. And Calypso was further than that. It was 1,000 years in the future. So we don't really know if there's a Starfleet. We don't know if what's going to happen. And it's going to be very interesting to see. We do know that there's a Section 31 show coming starring Michelle Yeoh as Philippa Giorgio. And Giorgio is now in the 33rd century. She was on Discovery when it went to the future. So a lot of people are saying, well, Giorgio at least has to come back to be in the Section 31 show. Does she? Does she? Do we know that's true? Maybe there's still a Section 31 in the 33rd century. Maybe the Giorgio 31 series is going to take place in the 33rd century. We don't know. Or maybe she's going to come back. Who knows? A lot of fans are also hoping for a series about Pike and Spock aboard the Enterprise, with Anson Mount and Ethan Peck being the stars of a new spinoff about the Enterprise. I understand the appeal of that. I got some problems with it. For one thing, Discovery is our Starship-based show. I feel like it would turn into CSI. You know, CSI New York, CSI Miami, CSI Las Vegas, they were all basically the same show. They just changed the setting, changed the characters. One thing that was very smart with the Star Trek producers in the 90s was they decided to do a spin-off of Next Generation that was going to run concurrently with Next Generation, that was Deep Space Nine. And they wisely decided we shouldn't do a Starship show, because that would be like we had two of the same show on at the same time. One will be a Starship show, one will be a space station show. That way there's a difference. And then Next Gen went off and they created Voyager. So once again, you had a space station and a Starship show on at the same time. Now we know Picard's getting a show. He's no longer a member of Starfleet, so it doesn't sound like the Picard show is going to be a Starship-based show. Section 31 certainly is going to be something completely different. So it feels like right now the 3 live action shows that we have announced, Discovery, Section 31, and Picard, are radically different from one another. A show set on the Enterprise would kind of be the same thing as Discovery. So up till now, I've really been lukewarm on that idea. But now, knowing that Discovery is going 930 years into the future, I'm starting to think it could work, because the shows would be in 2 different time periods. One where there's a Starfleet, that would be the Pike show, and one where there might not be. We do not know what is in that future 930 years from now. So that alone could make these shows radically different. Also, Discovery is very much arc-driven stories, season-long arcs, which I prefer. I think that's the better way of telling the story. I feel like storytelling has matured over the years, and this is a better way of telling the story. Episodic shows like we got with the original and the Next Generation, I kind of feel like we've gone past them as a society. However, I know some people still like that and kind of want that. So maybe that could be the Enterprise show. Maybe Pike and the Enterprise show could be episodic adventures, more like the original series, whereas Discovery continues the season-long arcs. There are ways now with this with Discovery going forward that I think both could work concurrently, whereas before this season finale, I didn't think the two would work concurrently. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the season finale. I love Star Trek Discovery. It is my favorite show. There have been 29 episodes. I have loved 28 of those 29 episodes. This is the first time in the history of this series that I have been severely let down by the show. I will say, a lot of people were saying season 2 was better than season 1. Now that I kept saying, let's wait and see. I said, I want to see how the story plays out before I declare which season is better. Now that both seasons have played out completely, I gotta say season 1 is still the better season. Season 1 was stronger. It started strong, it ended strong. Now, season 2 started strong, and I felt it ended weak. It still was a good season. Like, I'm not blasting the show. I really enjoyed it week after week. It's one episode I didn't like, but I felt they petered out at the conclusion. Still a fan. Can't wait till season 3. But yeah, I'm going to now say, in retrospect, having seen both seasons, I think season 1 is the better season. Things I liked about season 2: Anson Mount was awesome as Pike. Ethan Peck was a terrific Spock. Tig Notaro was terrific as Jet Reno. I hope they get her as a series regular for season 3. And we finally got some more character development on characters, the background characters, like, for example, Detmer and Ariam. Now, Ariam's gone, but we learned a little bit more about Ariam. I also think it's really cool that the actress who played Ariam in season 1 was Nielsen this season, and when Ariam died, Nielsen took Ariam's post. So basically, she replaced herself. That's kind of funny. But yeah, here's looking to season 3. Can't wait for the Picard show. Star Trek seems to be alive and well, and I couldn't be more pleased. I just wish they hadn't blundered that finale. And I seem to have a minority opinion. I see people online praising it. It's just, it's my opinion. And I saw someone online said if you didn't like it, you were a toxic fan. I liked 28 out of 29 episodes. 28 out of 29. Does disliking one episode makes me toxic? Now, don't get me wrong. That guy was speaking for himself. He wasn't speaking for everybody. But I think that guy needs to reevaluate what a toxic fan is if he thinks disliking one episode makes you a toxic fan. All right. Thank you to the writers and cast and crew of Discovery for a really good season. I didn't like the finale, but you know what? You guys banged it out of the park otherwise. Bring on season 3. Bring on Picard. Keep wearing those pajamas.
Keep wearing those pajamas with the plastic feet. Keep wearing those pajamas. Tell everyone you meet. Keep wearing those pajamas with the back door flap. Keep wearing those pajamas. Don't open, it's a trap. Oh no, it's a trap. Some people call them PJs, some people call them jammies. They can come embroidered with big money and no whammies. They can have 100 tiny commander adamas, but no matter how they look, just keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep wearing those pajamas. I know we're having fun. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now the song is done.